Hello and welcome back to a new video. This is going to be your Halloween episode for this year. Actually, to be perfectly honest with you, this was actually going to be Halloween episode 2 for last year. But I recorded it and then something happened, like the video file got corrupted and I had no backup, and like for whatever reason I couldn't finish it and I couldn't upload the video, so it didn't happen. But this year I am going to make it happen, and so today I'm going to be going through from worst to best the albums of the original Alice Cooper group, who were active from 1969 or so up to broke up I think in 74, and then Alice went solo in 75, and it's been a solo career for him ever since. But I'm not going to talk about those albums today. I'm limiting myself to the, I believe, 7 albums the original band put out. So let's just start things right off with my least favorite of the bunch, and this is all personal taste, of course. If this is your favorite album they ever put out, you know, I apologize. But anyway, my least favorite album by this group was Muscle of Love. This was their last album. It was their one of only 3 albums they ever put out without Bob Ezrin. From what I understand, the boys in the band were a little bit resentful of Bob Ezrin, and they were a little resentful about, I guess they were feeling like they were just Vince's lackeys and Bob Ezrin was telling them what to do. So they wanted to show that they could make an album without him. And they showed that they could, but the thing about the Alice Cooper group was that they were always, you got the sense that without Bob Ezrin they didn't have that touch where they knew how to connect with people. And there's some really fun tracks on this album, some really interesting tracks like Hard-Hearted Alice or Man with a Golden Gun, some pretty weird stuff like Woman Machine. Like, for some unknown reason they decided to make this a concept album basically about sex, and they were better off sticking to the James Bond stuff and the horror themed songs that they were doing, because this is just kind of weird. But yeah, some good tracks, you know, Woman Machine, Man with a Golden Gun, which supposedly was almost the Bond theme, but they forgot to mail it in, which is just incredibly stupid, but, you know, what are you going to do? Big Apple Dreamin' is fun, and Teenage Lament I remember being good, but to be honest with you, it's been a while since I've listened to this one. Okay, so my second least favorite, and this is probably where people are gonna hate on me, but it's just a personal taste thing. This is a lot of people's favorite, and it's a very good album. School's Out. This one has it's never quite connected with me the way some of the others have. It has some really good tracks on it. It's very glammy and even a little like Broadway and show tunes and that sort of thing. Alma Mater's great. The title track is great. Looney Tune, Blue Turk, Public Animal Number 9, you know. There's some really fun stuff on here. Like, I love the moment where they just go into West Side Story for a little bit, but it's not one I go to very often. Moving on, this is probably just a little sacrilegious to some people, but Easy Action, their second album from 1970, the last weird one. Like, a lot of people don't know this. The Alice Cooper group started out as a psychedelic freak band, or at least that's the mold they got pushed into. You know, how much of that was just they were freaky weirdos living in LA, and how much of it was, you know, they were signed to Frank Zappa's record label, and when you're part of Frank Zappa's record label, there are certain expectations of you. I don't know. This is a weird album. It's very psychedelic, but it's got that embryonic Alice Cooper style in a way that the first album, Pretty's for You, it just doesn't. Like, you'll get long, weird, psychedelic freak-out tracks on here, And then you'll get something like Return of the Spiders or Below Your Means that could easily be on like Love It to Death or Killer. But there's also like stuff like Shoe Salesman or Beautiful Flyaway, just little McCartney-esque ballads that are really fun because they never did anything like this again, you know? Production's not great on this one, like very much like the first one. But it kind of works, you know? There's this kind of weird, messed up, drugged out LA freak music vibe to these first two that I really have always really enjoyed. So moving on, number 4, Love It to Death. This is one of the classics. I would say the first classic one. It's the one that really made a name for themselves. I'm 18, Caught in a Dream, Is It My Body, The Ballad of Dwight Fry, you know, Second Coming, Sunrise, just about everything on here is a classic track. It's a great time from beginning to end. It's the beginning of that dark spookiness that they would cultivate, but there's a real like cool garage rock vibe to it that I really, really like. Like, for the most part, my favorite Alice Cooper is when it's really raw or when it's psychedelic and weird and freaky and garagey. And this kind of has the best of both worlds happening on here. This and Killer. But we'll get to that one in enough time as is. So number 3. A lot of people probably wouldn't put this one up this high. At one time, I was going to have it be number 2. But then I said to myself, no, there's a record that deserves that more. Pretty's for You. Straight Records, 1969. This is, like I was saying with Easy Action, I love this one because it captures a vibe. There's a vibe to Pretty's to You of just outcasts living in the psychedelic wasteland of late 60s LA and trying to get by, because these guys were not doing well when they were making this. Like, it's, you know, it's kind of fascinating that they became so successful later on because it took somebody as weird as Frank Zappa for them to get a record deal. Like, and they apparently like went into his house in the middle of the night and just started playing their stuff. Like one of the GTOs let them in. It was very interesting stuff. The production on this, though, is just awful. It's part of the vibe, I would argue, in many respects. But like, this is like semi-professional demo quality recordings. Like, Zappa had this vision for what these guys were going to be on this album, because this is the only one he had any real involvement on, and he only produced a part of it, and then he left it to Ian Underwood. But he had this really specific vision for Alice Cooper, that they were going to be like this weird garage freak band, and like I think he said something about like it was going to be the sound of driving past a garage while a band is playing, and that's definitely accurate. Like, you know, it's weird stuff. You know, this is, in my book, this is one of the great, forgotten, underappreciated psychedelic albums of the late 60s. You know, stuff like Sing Low, Sweet Cheerio, Living, Fields of Regret, Levity Ball. Levity Ball is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Horrible live recording. Sounds absolutely miserable. There's a studio version out there that sounds amazing, but Zappa put this miserable sub-bootleg live version on there for some reason. Reflected actually got reused to be elected on Billion Dollar Babies. Apple Bush, you know, Changing, Arranging, just great stuff. Really, really weird album cover. Like, apparently that was a painting that was in Frank Zappa's house. Like, weird stuff. Anyway, number 2. This was actually my first album I ever heard by these guys. Billion Dollar Babies. This is one of my favorite glam albums. It's one of my favorite 70s hard rock albums. It has a great sense of humor. There's some goofiness, some seriousness, some really, really weird stuff, but it all has this sheen and this shimmer of this just sleazy, glammy 70s-ness that I really enjoy. And there's a lot of great tracks on here. Elected, Billion Dollar Babies, which I believe is a duet with, I want to say, Donovan, which is great. Of course, No More Mr. Nice Guy, but Generation Landslide's great too. Sick Things, Mary Ann, Hello Hooray, Unfinished Sweet is this album's token weird, out there, semi-progressive psychedelic track. And you can't go wrong with an album closer like I Love the Dead. It's just, this is, there is an album by these guys that I like more, but this is the top of the mountain in a lot of ways. So yeah. I realized just now that I spent like 4 minutes talking about Pretties for You, and then I'm flying through the rest of these albums, but Anyway, my favorite album by the Alice Cooper Group is 1971's, their second album of 1971, Killer. This one does everything I like from these guys. It has the weird, proggy psychedelic stuff. It has the really, really good garage rock, hard rock stuff, and it has that glamminess to it that Bob Ezrin brought to them. This one, from start to finish, from Under My Wheels to the title track, is just absolutely fantastic. Under My Wheels, Be My Lover, Yeah, 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 You Drive Me Nervous. Those are great radio songs, but Desperado's a cool genre excursion too. I want to say that was about Jim Morrison. But it's the long tracks that really make me love this album. Halo of Flies, which I guess was them trying to prove that they could be like King Crimson, which, I mean, it's not on the level of King Crimson, but that's usually a positive thing in my book, And then Killer and Dead Babies are both really good, interesting tracks. Dead Babies, despite the very edgy title, is actually about parents not taking care of their children and their children paying the price for that. It's a pretty dark song, anyway. Not like throbbing gristle dark, but pretty dark nonetheless. And yeah, it's just everything I like about this band in one package. Phenomenal stuff. Highly recommend this to anybody who's interested in the band. And if you can stomach 10 times this, I actually did do a retrospective video on Alice Cooper about 4 years ago now. It's not very good. It's not very good at all. I would actually advise you not to watch it. But if you should choose, it is out there. In any case, this has been your Halloween video, and so I will be signing off. Have a good night, and I will see you later.